let's start the session then. Once again, hello, my name is Simon and I will be the chair in this session and the next session. We have two very interesting papers ahead of us here late in the afternoon. After both sessions are over, we will open two breakout rooms where participants can join and discuss the papers further if they haven't been able to ask the questions they would like to do during the presentations. With this, I would like to put the floor to Torben Albertsen from Universidad Técnica, Federico Santa Maria in Chile. I'm not sure if I pronounced that more or less correctly, but I did an attempt at least from the Department of Humanistic Studies. And Torben works within intercultural philosophy and anthropology, and will be giving a paper with the title Strange Animals and What to Do with Them. And with those words, I would give the floor to you, Torben.
Okay, thank you. So in Chile, intercultural education, at least ideally, is concerned with learning from indigenous people. That is, the word intercultural in Latin America in general is used in reference to differences between indigenous people and the mestizo or colonized people. And as such, anthropology takes the center stage very often. I'm working in Chile on a postdoc with the purpose of trying to do a dialogue on the theme of pedagogy or education with the Mapuche indigenous population, to try and figure out how their pedagogical thinking differs from ours, how their pedagogical technology differs from ours, hence trying to understand a kind of, you could say, pedagogical alterity or difference, otherness. So this has to do with plurality, of course, or diversity, or more specifically, how to embrace different worldviews without reducing them at the same time. So if sustainability has any stake in this, it would have to do with learning how to continually sustain such plurality, diversity, and see itself as a process of continual unfolding in these futures of education. In Chile, the program of intercultural education has been criticized precisely because of this. That is, because it tends to integrate by reducing indigenous realities to its own parameters and models of understanding education. This is why I'm interested in bringing specifically anthropology into the debate on education. I'm specifically interested in our methodological capacity to comprehend and accept altarities and radical differences. So from this problem, I would like to delve into an anthropologist from Brazil called Viveiros de Castro, who is part of an anthropological projection called recursive anthropology, or sometimes also the ontological turn. This anthropology might be characterized by the phrase strange animals and what to do with them, taking the strange animals for his ethnography on the Arawe in the lowland Amazonian area, and the what to do with them for his mythology. So, jaguars are strange animals. They eat juicy steaks and drink beer when flowing from the body of their victims, instead of the raw meat and blood we would normally suppose. These are some of the strange ideas that Viveiros de Castro's anthropology proposes when trying to unravel Amerindian thought. With the word Amerindian, he's referring principally to Amazonian or lowland Amazonian indigenous people, as well as some indigenous people in North America as well. The correct phrase is perspectivism, which is reminiscent to what has been understood as animism. Viveiros de Castro, however, introduces another concept, multinaturalism, which would be the Amerindian contrast to what we in the West tend to understand as multiculturalism. So the title of Strange Animals relates to his perspectivism, while the other part, what to do with them, relates to his concept of multinaturalism, which I will argue should be seen in relation to his methodological contribution. Perspectivism. In the Amerindian cosmologies, there is rarely creation ex nihilo. This is true not only in lowland Amazonia, but also in many other indigenous societies in Amerindia or America. For example, the Mapuche, which are in Chile and Argentina, or the Mayan cosmologies. Since nothing can rise from nothing, everything is a transformation from something else. This contrasts the idea of creation, invention, to the idea transformation, transference. Furthermore, in Amerindian societies in Amazonia, the original common condition is not animality or nature, like in our evolutionist biology, but rather humanity. Animals, therefore, are former humans, and not humans former animals. Perspectivism is a kind of ontology which postulates the social character of relations between humans and non-humans. It is based on a relationship between a kind of internal principle, soul, spirit, culture, etc., on the one hand, and nature, in parentheses, or more precisely the body, on the other. This does not, however, amount to a metaphysical dualism. This internal principle is traced from the original condition of humanity, hence it is anthropomorphic in character. However, it is not exclusive to humans, but shared with every animated being. This principle is formally the same in all animated beings, although it generally and in a pragmatic sense attributed to animals or nature of a more symbolic character, that has a relevant symbolic function for the society at hand. Now, while this internal principle is given to all in advance, nature, or the body, is something made by each force. Bodies, in this sense, constitute the variable between species, and also with regards to perspectives. A body constitutes, so to speak, the differences instead of the similarities, and is the fundamental difference in any point of view or perspective, precisely because the condition of a perspective is that it's located in the body. So while the commonality of the internal principle gives all being the same conceptual and anthropomorphic repertoire, the body, where it is located or made, makes these conceptualities differ, hence refer to different things. It is in this sense that the jaguar drinks blood while humans drink beer, different things, but they do so from a similar anthropomorphic conceptuality. That is, the jaguar conceptualizes the blood in human ways, as beer. The body is not given, but made through metamorphosis, through the transformation, transference. In the sense of a kind of clothing skin that you can both change, but that changes you in turn when you put it on. This clothing skin determines what you see when you see others and how they appear to you, while the internal principle is generally hidden from view. So by body, he is not referring to physiological differences, but rather to what he calls effects, or the idea or dispositions or capacities, which render a body unique, for example, to each species. A body is an ensemble of effects or ways that constitute habitus or subjectivizing and personifying characteristics, rather than physiological characteristics. Therefore, the body or nature is not ontology as essence or subject, but rather ontology as perspective. For example, it's not because we are subjects that we have a perspective or point of view, but rather because we have a perspective or point of view located in the body, that is, we are situated in the clothing skin, that we are subjects. So in a sense, it is our perspective, which is one with our bodies, that gives us our ontological status, not the ontology as essence that allows us to have a perspective. Method, or what to do with these animals. So what kind of methodological consequences does De Castro draw from his ethnography? Or what to do with these strange animals? He proposes that instead of explaining, interpreting, or rationalizing native thought, we need to explicate it, deploy it, experiment with it, and draw out its consequences in order to verify the effects that it might have on our own thinking and actions. To deploy Amerindian thought means to put it into dialogue with our own currents of thought and follow the implication of said perspective. What he means by explanation, interpretation, or rationalization is to find the causes of something as in causes that are external to the thinking itself, say in historical, sociological, or biological terms. He proposed that this line of thinking is often accompanied by the question of belief, which does not permit a deployment of their thinking. The problem could be exemplified by how the Mapuche shaman, the Machi, puts on different gender clothing in order to attract spirits. If we have to orient our thinking with respect to whether we believe or not in putting on cross-gender clothing can attract spirits, we are implicitly taking for granted an invariable and transcendent ground, which places us in a unique third position from where we can judge the reality of sides. Here, the alterity is negated as a valid reason, and we tend to replace it with our own models of society: belief, mystical power, social control, fetishism, etc. In other words, we see only ourselves. The question of belief orders us to distance ourselves from whatever consequences such thinking might have and reduce it to, for example, metaphor, becoming a metaphor for something else and external. This is simultaneously a reduction of their problems to our problems. Instead, what is worth knowing is precisely that to which we do not know the answer, namely, what the indigenous people are saying when they say that spirits get attracted to the effects of your body, or that a jaguar has a human perspective. The question of belief forces us into a trap of having to believe either the native or our own theories in a kind of competition, which presents this competition in a fictive way and turns at best into a reduction of their worlds to ours. Multinaturalism. So what is his own deployment then of Amerindian perspectivism? The concept that epitomizes this deployment is multinaturalism, as a contrastive or comparative feature to what he deems our multiculturalism, which is proposed as our predominant Western cosmology. By multiculturalism, he's referring to the way we tend to see nature or the body as unity or common condition of mankind, while culture, spirit, soul, vitality, etc., is where multiplicity and differences are found. Amerindian societies, on the contrary, tend to see the culture as the unifying common condition, while nature, the body, are where multiplicity and differences are conceived. One of his used references is an anecdote he quotes from Lévi-Strauss, which was used to explain ethnocentrism. So while the Spanish Inquisition and theologians were discussing whether or not the Amerindians had souls, e.g. culture today, the natives were busy drowning white people to see if their bodies were the same as theirs. Hence, both took for granted a specific location of unity and diversity. The Spanish saw the body as self-evidently similar to their own, while the soul was where the question of difference was situated. The Amerindians, on the contrary, saw the soul of the white man as self-evidently similar to theirs, while placing the question of difference in the body, trying to unravel whether the white man had the same body as theirs. So the general problem Amerindians face is to differentiate nature out of universal sociality. Alternatively, they have one epistemology, but many ontologies, whereas we seem to have the inverse: many epistemologies, but only one ontology or nature. A multinaturalistic cosmology, therefore, proposes a constant epistemology, but with variable ontologies. So to conclude, so how to embrace a plurality of educational forms? I think the main problem is situated in our capacity to understand and accept radical alterity and difference, a problem I think is necessary to work through in order to rethink the futures with S of education. In any case, this would be trying to approach the Mapuche concept of learning, or what they call Kimiltue. Viveiro de Castro theory presents a kind of example of radical difference, contrasting the multiplicity of nature to a singularity of culture, and in this sense unsettles our own perspective in as far as it is a contrary position. This kind of unsettling experience is essential, I think, for reworking. I think anthropology might be important in this task. The methodology of Viveiro de Castro tries to place itself at the mercy and service of these radical differences, in my opinion, a humble approach. I think this is a necessary transformation if we are to create an intercultural education that actually learns about education from indigenous people instead of just dictating terms to them, which is often the case, at least in Chile. In summary, I want not just to try and understand the educational problems of the Mapuche, but how their problems differ from ours. Thank you for listening. That should have been relatively brief. All right?
Yes. Thank you very much. This leaves us time for Q&A, and if people would, if anyone has any questions or comments, perhaps it is best to somehow leave a mark or indicate this in the chat function. It might be easier for me to navigate this rather than the camera feeds. Simply, you can write the question or comment in the chat function, or you can just indicate it with a question mark if you have a question or comment you would like to pose. We have a question here from Nørgaard.
Sorry, just a second. Yeah, I'm sorry to actually, I had to fix something, so I'm outside right now. But I was so interested in this presentation, and thank you so much, Torben, for your very sort of nice explanation of this particular kind of anthropology. I would like to ask you, what is your stance on the discussion that's going on in anthropology between this ontological turn and then people who are maybe more of a phenomenological, anthropological point of view about kind of the ethical consequences of taking of seeing radical alterity when you see other people. In which ways are we gonna be able to sort of work in a common world for common solutions if we live in radically different worlds? And then the second question is about the educational consequences, because I thought it was really interesting that you're trying to employ this theory to think education, and I would like to hear more about that. Was that clear enough?
Yeah, I think I got that. I think I will probably start with the last one. I'm proposing to do kind of dialogue, trying to remove myself from the traditional methodologies. Here down in Chile, normally like interviews or informants or all of these traditional words are used that really points to a one-directional approach, I think. And with regards to that, so I'm trying to do some kind of dialogue, but because of the COVID, I haven't been able to do anything practical yet. I can't even go out of the city. You know, I have in Chile, everything is in lockdown, and you have 2 permissions to go out of your house every week. So it's like a autocracy down here. So I've only had 1 year of this postdoc, and so I've only had theoretical discussion. So the practical implications is a little bit hard to swallow at the time. But I have some reflections on this, and the idea of the dialogue is to talk with people, what they call kimche, or knowledgeable people who have wisdom in the Mapuche ways, generally older people, not always, who and hopefully get them to speak in their own language, because I think some of these differences, what the recursive turn deems conceptual, right? They speak of a conceptual realism, which is the second or the first point you mentioned, which I might come back to, are had through the language, right? It's easier to see and easier to comprehend, and sometimes it's only there in the way that the language is formulated and how that differs, or that hopefully in this dialogue, this will give me a possibility to detect how that differs from our own use of language in pedagogy, for example. So the idea is to have translators, and hopefully they will explain their pedagogical technologies in their own language. And then through the translators, hopefully I can work out some kind of difference in the understandings. So that was with regards to what is the practical implications of this dialogue. And so it's just a dialogue with a few people, me presenting maybe some Western ideas on pedagogy, and then discussing, and hopefully that will bring out some of the contrary aspects of their own ways of thinking, Kimiltu or education. Now, the first question with regards to the ethical consequences. Now, I'm a little bit, you could say, divided on this, because I'm sort of, you could say, subject here. I'm within a habitus, you might say, in the Bourdieu sense, here in Chile, which is kind of very different from what you have in Denmark, or that's also very critical of this kind of conceptual realism that this tradition would expound, and that you could say would be deemed like postmodernism, you know, just thrown off the table as in one phrase as postmodern. So I'm kind of in the ethical implication or consequence, I'm kind of in a dilemma between these two traditions, you might say, between Danish and Chilean, and I don't really know how to get out of that. It's one of the reasons I'm at this conference, to try and fathom how, you know, I can swing it to explain it to Danish people at the same time that I can try and you might say sell it to Mapuche people and Chilean intellectuals in general. So on one hand, there's a very big criticism of this kind of conceptual realism from here. But on the other hand, I think it brings some possibilities in terms of acceptance of an ethical alterity, right? And I think really that's the key for me at this point, at least. Yeah, for example, I can mention one example. The difference can be very much assumed in the concept of experimentality. Like people in this context, in Danish context, use the words experiment very often, but in Latin America, that word is associated with, you know, colonial experiments, always by somebody else from somewhere else. So very difficult to introduce that concept without becoming part of the colonial discourse, for example. I don't know if these things answered your questions. Okay.
Had to unmute. Thank you. There's at the moment no more questions, so I would like to pose a question here. This project, this ontology or the methodology, in what way can we understand that this as part of a decolonialization project in Chile? Does it constitute a part of a decolonialized discourse there, or how should we how could we understand it in those terms?
Well, actually, Vivero Castro, in one of his books specifically called Metafísicas Canibales, proposes that this process of unraveling otherness is a process of discolonization or decolonization. So he kind of enters that, and it's interesting to see how he, from Brazil, uses this concept, but other people, other anthropologists in the same tradition from the UK, they don't use this concept. So, so again, there's a diverge here. But actually, this process of trying to experience or experiment, in this case, a different kind of logic, a different kind of thinking, rationality, and then letting it transform in oneself, right? Perhaps in the Levinasian sense, I don't know. That itself, he claims, is a kind of process of decolonization. Hi, Jasna.
We have a raised hand from Jasna. Jasna, would you like to ask a question or comment?
Just a short comment. I'm sorry that I arrived a bit later, but Torben and me have been working on the within the Nordic summer universities, and I'm familiar to extent with what Torben is doing in Chile, and I really appreciate what he's doing. And he, I think, is right that this discourse of colonization and decolonization, etc. I mean, we've kind of invented it in the past 2 centuries, let's say, but humanity itself is marked by discovering other parts of humanity which is lost or out there, but we don't know about it. And I highly appreciate what Torben is doing. I really think, because we got to know within the Nordic Summer University throughout these past 2 years with his project, I think it's really valuable. And maybe the mark or label colonization or post-colonization, or as he rightly says, post-colonialism, maybe it doesn't serve the purpose anymore. I think what he is doing is bringing South America with Europe, with North America, I mean, making us closer to what humanity should be. And I just wanted to give my appreciation for what he is doing. And I would prefer no labels to his researches. I think it's one which is full of merit. This was just a comment. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Jasna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment or ask a question at this stage?
Victoria.
It does not appear that that there are any more questions at this stage. There will be also a possibility to do that at the breakout room afterwards, where we can
That's fine,
discuss
no problem.
But this also, as far as I can see, constitutes the end of this this session. The time is 4:45, and which means that we will also have to move on to the next session, where we can enjoy hearing a paper from Ljupco Kocarev and Professor Jasna Koteska, both from St. Cyril and Methodius University in Skopje. I think today that Jasna will be the one presenting this paper with the title Ethics of Digital Me, AI Agents and Futures of Education. Jasna is, as I said, a professor at the St. Cyril and Methodius University in Skopje, and is also the coordinator of the study circle Futures of Education at the Nordic Summer University, and has written numerous books, among others, on the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. So I look forward to hearing your paper, and the floor is yours, Jasna.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Simon. It is Simon or Simon? It's Simon.
Simon in Danish, yes.
Simon, and also Jasna in Macedonian. We kind of pronounce the name as just as you Danish do the same as what we do in south of Europe, let's say. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you, Simon, and thank you to VIA University College and to UNESCO ESD for 2030, and to all Future of Education's conference, Learning to Become 2021. And I want to say hi to everybody who is part of the Nordic Summer University. It's really a great network where we exchange what we are doing, just like Torben did. Today's lecture will be a bit different from, excuse me, from what we are doing at the Nordic, from what I'm just moderating, like Simon is doing, like Simon is doing right now within the Nordic Summer University. But today I'm presenting something which Professor Kocarev and me are working on for the past 11 months. So it's almost a year. Let me introduce ourselves to everybody of you who don't know me, and probably it's everybody except for Torben, probably. So my name is Jasna. I'm from a country which is Republic of Macedonia. It's between Serbia and Greece, so it's south of Europe. And Professor Kocarev is for 25 years a professor of dynamic systems, mathematician and physicist at San Diego University. I'm into philosophy and humanistics, let's say, from University in Skopje. It's the capital of the said state, Macedonia. We are just 2 million people in total. What we did for the past 1 year was an investigation into a cross-discipline between ethics and future of educations, which is really important to us, and artificial intelligence agent, which we came to call digital me. Before I delve into our investigation, which is ongoing, and we are writing a book at the moment about it, I will just start with a topic which is a kind of strange one. It's about human melancholy and about humanity and where we are at this threshold of human existence, let's say. I'll bring you back 5 years ago. Excuse me. It was 2016. There was an algorithm, or what we call artificial intelligence agent. It's called AlphaGo. Everybody who follows closely or remotely artificial intelligence development, AlphaGo was an algorithm which was developed by Google DeepMind team. In 2016, so 5 years ago, in March, so approximately 5 years ago, Google AlphaGo was a program invented to beat a human player in the ancient game of Go. The game of Go is an ancient board game which consists of 19 per 19 places on a board, and it has millions of possible moves. If I'm to move like a chess, but much more complex. So if I have a turn in the board game, then I have approximately 250 moves just for one move of. So AlphaGo, the ancient game of Go, was considered unbeatable by artificial intelligence within the artificial intelligence community in the 1990s. The best programmers and computer scientists and physicists and mathematicians, like Professor Kocarev, he is current president of Macedonian Academy of Sciences and Arts, and he for 25 years is part of these dynamic systems and theory of chaos and cryptography within San Diego University. So they, in the 90s, they thought that we humans can develop a program which would beat the ancient game of Go in approximately 100 years. So the year they said would be around 2100, and now we are in 2016, and they already, so Google DeepMind made this program which was called AlphaGo. I'm talking about 5 consecutive days and 5 consecutive games. AlphaGo was playing against the 18th times world champion of Go. He's from Seoul, from South Korea. His name is Lee Sedol. And what happened is, of course, AlphaGo won the battle. But what was of importance for us when we started this investigation last year in June was the second of the 5 games. So the second game took place on 10th of March last year, in 2016. So the second game, in approximately 1 hour, not approximately, but precisely 1 hour, 38 minutes and 39 seconds within the game, it was the turn of AlphaGo, of the program, of what we used to call machine. It was his 37th of her or its 37th move, so 37. It was his 37th move. What AlphaGo did was that it made a move which was considered to be a mistake by both the technology reporters at the time and by AlphaGo programmers themselves, all of Google DeepMind team. They considered that AlphaGo made a mistake because he played a move which was considered impossible and a mistake. Then what happened is that AlphaGo programmers ran from the playing floor to the room where the machine where AlphaGo was situated, the programmer's room, and they asked AlphaGo itself what he or she or it thinks about his own move. And AlphaGo, what he said was first that he knows that the move will be considered unthinkable, and second of all, that although he knew that the move would be considered unthinkable, he decided to play that move. They asked what is the probability that the move, sorry, my neighborhood, just a second. Okay, he was not perfect. My neighborhood is a great one. Kids are playing still. So AlphaGo made precise mathematical precision that he or she or it played a move which there is 1 in 10,000 probability that the move will ever be played by a human player. Now, what is the problem? That the program was developed to win. So it would be probability should be 1 to 1 or 1 to 2 or 1 to 10. That was because the AlphaGo was fed by a library of human moves, millions of them by all professional Google Go players, millions of them. Also, part of what they did with AlphaGo was they trained him to also self-play, to play against himself. So basically, he had a bit of knowledge about playing against him or her or itself, but he had a huge library, and his goal was to win the game within the fastest moves possible. Yet, what he did was first he knew that he chose a move which was the probability was 1 in 10,000, and second of all, he decided to play that move. And then for the past 1 year, what we are doing here in Macedonia, Professor Kocarev and me, are trying to decipher this threshold when the knowledge, which is connected to our topic of education, turned out to be something else, meaning that it considers a knowledge and it considers decision. Both of them are connected to what we would call education. So knowledge was saying, you don't play the move called, now it's called the move 37, and there is quite a literature about it in the artificial intelligence community already. Not only that it knew that the move was not a probable one that will lead to victory, but what the AlphaGo did was that he or it or she, I'll call it she decided to play instead of win. I mean, of course, she wanted to win, and she eventually won all 5 consecutive games. But for that particular moment, she also wanted to decide to play the game. And I will read a short comment by, at that time, the New York Times writer and the Wired reporter. So he says, I'll read this because I think it's important for the futures of education as well. This is from 2016. The Wired magazine is the famous magazine about the newest achievements in technology. He wrote, there was this heavy sadness over the whole flow, and you could feel it during the game. I felt it during the game, the second consecutive game. And I'm leaving the commentary room to go to the press conference. And I was stopped by someone, another technology reporter. At first, all he wanted to talk about was the technology and how great it was. But then, even he kind of slipped into this moment of melancholy where he was upset as well. You feel elated and you feel a little bit scared. There is something, I think, frightening to people about a machine that learns on its own. The reason I'm mentioning this about melancholy, as I said, is that the next year, already in 2017, the Google DeepMind developed another program which is called, now it's called also AlphaGo, but just with the added word 0. So it's called AlphaGo 0. You've probably also heard about it as well. 0 here stands for zero human knowledge. What Google DeepMind team did was this time it stripped the algorithm out of all human knowledge. No library of human moves ever made in Go. In chess was already beaten in the 90s by Deep Blue versus Kasparov. So this was another level of complexity of the game. But they decided to create an algorithm which this time does not require human knowledge at all. That's why it's called AlphaGo 0. 0 stands for zero human knowledge. And then, of course, AlphaGo 0 beat AlphaGo in all games they've ever played. Human knowledge was no longer needed. But in 2019, the third program was launched by Google DeepMind. It's called Mu0. What is particular about this program now is that Mu0 did not require anymore any human knowledge. None of my moves, none of Torben, none of Simon, none of each of our moves ever. It required zero human knowledge. More importantly, it required zero knowledge of rules of game. Like it didn't need the rules how to play the game. And the most frightening thing was that it didn't need environmental dynamics anymore. It didn't need to know that there is Jasna and Torben and Simon and none of it. Where it is situated in time and place, it was absolutely unimportant. Mu0 could beat now all of previous, like AlphaGo is now ancient history regarding artificial intelligence. Why is this important for our conference on ethics in and future of education? Because education is connected to knowledge, in parts also to pedagogy, but knowledge is really part of education as we traditionally know it. But you see what we are dealing with here. This knowledge has another epistemological value, kind of. It is a program which we humans developed by us humans, for us humans. But this type of knowledge surpasses any single human. I mean, in terms of the density, the power, and the fury of that knowledge. Not a single human individual on this planet can ever claim that it can access or manage this type of knowledge, that AlphaGo, which is really now rudimentary AI program. I mean, it's really, for 2021, it's like nothing. They developed programs way beyond the scope of AlphaGo. But if we go just with AlphaGo, then the knowledge density and fury of that knowledge is not reachable to any of us anymore, ever. And if we go on the scale of what happened prior the arrival of artificial intelligence, we knew of several types of layers of knowledge. There was human knowledge, wiser between us, more powerful between us humans. There was the human of, there was the knowledge of, let's say, animals. This is what Torben and me and other colleagues at Nordic Summer University work with. It will be, animals have knowledge. Sometimes we call it intuition, sometimes we call it knowledge. And again, let's say if there is a tsunami, you remember the unfortunate famous tsunami which killed hundreds of people. After the tsunami hit, there was no corpse of any animal, which meant that animals, basically it's also science, animals have a different spectrum of perception, like they heard things that we humans couldn't hear, or they saw things which we humans by the very senses which could not see, etc. We call it intuition, but it's also knowledge. So there was animal knowledge, there was human knowledge, which we humans developed for millennia now. And there was this God knowledge in the ancient times, because I'm coming from this specter of south of Europe. And okay, so for example, Oedipus trilogy by Sophocles. For example, when Oedipus wants to know why he has the fate that he has, he is calling upon the gods, because the gods are the ones who have this density of knowledge. And then the witness kind of arrives in the very second act, and he says, you suffer this horrible destiny because you've married your mother and you've killed your father. This happened in your past without you knowing it. But they could correspond with the gods who had the knowledge of the whole knowledge. But what happens with these algorithms today is not God-alike, is not animal or plant-alike, it's not earth-alike, it's not human-alike. We humans created it, but it already has the density and power and fury that none of us can withhold within or can display. Or which there is another type of knowledge which appeared. It has another epistemological value, which will probably shape the future of education as we know it. I don't know if I have more time, but the paper which I'll send the link to, we've published the paper, which we've worked on for 11 months. It's on archive. It's just called Digital Me, Ontology and Ethics. So we wanted to see what is happening with us, not with algorithms that Google DeepMind develops. It doesn't matter, they are a corporation. I mean, it matters, but not to the extent that it matters to us. First, we realized that there is an agency out there which is called, like, let's say, Digital Torben or Digital Simon or Digital Jasna, and it lives right there where you are and where each of us are. And at first, Professor Kocarev and me called it digital twin. Excuse me. But then we realized that it's not just one digital me which is out there, that they are multiplied agents, and that all of this agent has its own. Now, this comes the scary part of our investigation. AlphaGo was nothing. Basically, there are a series of digital me's which already exist in the not cyberspace, but digital world, which is multiplying as we speak. This presentation right now will be part of that digital me for Simon, for Torben, for Jasna, for all of Nina, all of us, forever. So why I'm saying this, we decided not to go with the term digital twin, but with the term digital me, and that's how the paper of our presentation is called Ethics of Digital Me. And here is Simon and our time frame. I'm checking there's the clock. So we had a good and a bad news. Professor Kocarev is following this Gartner consortium of technological trends. And he came across last year in 2020, this Gartner consortium said that there will be 5 emerging technological trends for the next decade to shape the humanity. So for the next, until 2030, we will be living within 5 digital trends. And good news for us was that one of them was precisely called digital me. The bad news now, the bad news is that we started to search all the scientific libraries and databases of Google Scholars, all journals, and we found only 3 papers which were mentioning digital me. One of them was digital mass footprint, which I'm leaving when I'm on Twitter or on Facebook, when I'm on Instagram or on Zoom, etc. The second one was like personal storage. So it was the second paper was speaking about the storage, which I'll like corporation thing. I will buy to store my personal things online, blah blah. Not important. And the third one, also unfortunately not that important. It was speaking about biometric data like my blood sugar level or my heartbeat, etc. But what we mean by digital me is something between this AlphaGo and between the futures of education. And we decided that this agent is really important. Namely, we realized that this agent, which is called, for example, digital me Torben, or digital me Simon, or digital me Victoria, or digital me Jasna, or digital me Michaela, or whatever, that these digital me's are first of all autonomous, which means that whatever you find there out there in the digital world, it's not really me, or not really Torben, or not really Simon. Second of all, it is just like AlphaGo. It is decision making. It makes decisions, decisions on its own. My digital me out there is making, as we speak, decisions on its own. They are not connected to the decisions that I'm making. And the third one was that this agent is self-learning, just like AlphaGo. It knew that it has to win against the world champion, but it decided to play a little bit romantic, a little bit different attack style, and to play a little bit with a human. So this agent, which is called Jasna Digital Me, is also self-learning. How we know this? Because of this paper. Okay, I'm not using share screen because we are already doomed. So, and we are already in the melancholy, and we are probably at the end of the humanity. So I will just speak. And this is the paper still printed. I'll use it with the best cause. I will recycle. So this is, this paper is from 2013. It was prior AlphaGo, okay, prior Google. It is 4 pages. It is just 4 pages paper. You see, this is the second page, and this is the third, and the fourth are just references. Okay, so this is only 4 pages. This is the most important paper published in the last 20 years, 15, 20 years. It was published by a Polish scientist. His name is Kosinski, surname is Kosinski. It is a team of scientists. He published it in what is called PNAS. It's Proceedings of American Academy of Science and Arts. Yes, I will send. Thank you so much. I will send everything to Simon and to Jesper, and then and Torben, I'll send it on an email. This paper is 4 pages. American Academy of Sciences published it. I think that Kosinski at that time was not even 30 years old. So he was really young, and his team of scientists. I'll read the first sentence, what they've discovered in 2013. I'll read you this one. We show, just one first sentence. We show that easily accessible digital records of behavior can be used to automatically and accurately predict a range of highly sensitive personal attributes, including sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, religious, political views, personality traits, intelligence, happiness, use of addictive substances, parental separation, age, gender, 18 of them. You know what they used? They used 170 Facebook likes. I'm sorry, Facebook likes. So Facebook fucking likes. 170 times that you've clicked on a pet that you like, on a photo of your friend, on a news which appeared and you just liked it. 170 clicks were enough for the model to be born. The model was saying that they can precise with the with the highest precision explain that I'm from Macedonia, that I'm 50 years old, that I'm female, that I 18 identity categories. And why is this paper important? Because they discovered for the first time in 2013 that what is called 5 big personalities.
Is it just me or did we lose her?
I think maybe we did, yes.
Yeah, I also lost her.
That was kind of a cliffhanger, huh?
Yeah.
What did they discover?
Let's hope
she'll have some technical issues right now. I'm trying to contact her, so she'll be online in a few minutes, I guess.
Okay, we'll have to wait on the edge of our chair to find out.
I think she is arriving again.
Yeah, good.
So please unmute yourself, Jasna, and continue. We are very pleased to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I lost you. I don't know, maybe.
Sorry, we didn't hear what you said. You said, and they discovered, and that's when you fell out. So now we're really interested.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Michaela. So it was like, what we've discovered is that this paper was scientifically proving that my digital me, which lives on Facebook, on Twitter, in social network, whatever, which is living in digital world, knows me better than I know myself. But even the more scary thing is coming. This is paper published in 2013. Now we call it Kosinski's model. After Kosinski published this paper of 4 pages, he got a full professorship in Stanford, and he's doing amazing things right now. But 2 years later, in 2015, he was part of the team of scientists which discovered something even more scary. Look at this. I mean, not look, but here, this is really scary. In 2015, they've determined, based on these findings, that computer-based personality judgments, which means me online, not me as I'm speaking right now to you, me online, my digital me online, computer-based personality judgments are more accurate than those made by humans. This is a model made by Japanese, American, Polish, European scientists. This model is used to judge the personality of the individual represented by the digital me, as well as other individuals' personalities and even other digital me's. You know what this means? This means that Torben's digital me can judge me better than I can judge myself, and my digital me can judge myself. Or that my digital me knows more about me than I know about me, with accuracy that is beyond the scope of whatever we knew prior to the arrival of artificial intelligence. And it's, I think, really important for the education and how we should form it. But then another, it's just 2 more levels of what we've discovered, because we were working on this. Of course, the mathematical and physical aspects of this, I didn't work on the mathematical aspects of this. Professor Kocarev did, and I am really bad at math. but I was just working with the ethical and ontological aspects. But the second layer, which we discovered, was even more scary. The second one was that basically this digital me entity out there is immortal. It cannot ever die. You remember that 2 years ago in 2018, in May, I think it was May, that European Union introduced a new concept to its legislative law, very important one. It was called the concept, the right to be forgotten, the right to be erased. I will, not, yeah, thank you so much for the comment. I will come back to this, that basically there is no escape from, even if we never use, but we will discuss it. Thank you so much for the comment. The second layer, what we've discovered is that this European legislative, which passed into European Parliament, it's really important, right to be erased, like it's my human right to be forgotten from digital world. But then there was this huge scientific, again, huge scientific community which was investigating the level of possibility to erase one's digital identity. You cannot, you don't need to ever be online, like you don't even need to have a computer, you are online. I'll explain this later, but anyway, they came to this conclusion. In 2018, they came to the conclusion that it may be impossible to fulfill the legal aims of the right to be forgotten in artificial intelligence environment. Why? Because the quantum world, this was, by the way, proven theoretically in 2007 and demonstrated experimentally in 2011, that quantum information cannot be destroyed ever. Unfortunately, quantum information has been proven theoretically that it cannot be destroyed, and also experimentally it was demonstrated that whatever was stored online can never be erased anymore. Okay, and then the third and most scariest part of our discovery, yeah, there is a scarier part, was that basically why we decided to treat this entity, and I'm soon finishing, why we discovered to treat this entity as an ethical agent, and why we think it's really important for the future of education. Because it was proven by the physicists and mathematicians that information is energy. Again, it's not some old doctrine or whatever. In 2010, it was made possible for information to be converted to heat energy engines. My information can form energy which will heat machines to work. So basically, it turned out that information is tightly connected to energy, and energy is tightly connected to mass and to matter. Like matter would be everything which takes place in time and space. It meant that energy and mass, energy, information, and matter are tightly connected, and that's why energy can be treated as ontological entity. Now, also because it produces energy. From our information, the energy can be produced to run, I don't know, trains. So we decided to look at its ontology, and I will skip this part and go to ethics. And we decided that because this entity is not mortal, it can never die. My digital me or Simon's or Torben's will never die. It means that this, and we, based on scientific papers, which we have plenty of, like for 11 months we are working on these papers, they are proving that you can never be erased. like the information will be there immortally. But Professor Kocarev, my colleague, was avoiding the term immortal because he says that mathematically it's hard to prove, and physically it's from the standpoint of physics as a science. And also me, from the position of humanistics, I was also avoiding the term immortality because it was difficult for me to explain what immortality means. But imagine if, I'll skip also this, imagine if you cannot die ever. I mean, of course, the basic question of humanity since forever was the question why I have to die. You remember the oldest text in preserved since forever is Gilgamesh, right? And there the main hero is asking the question why I need to die. And then he goes to the gods, and then he goes to the underworld to meet his friend Enkidu, etc. But the main question was why I am mortal. But I mean, throughout the centuries, with millennia, we've discovered that maybe, I mean, if I'm mortally wounded, if I'm really hurting, then I can maybe find a refuge in death. You know, like, it's horrible to die, but then on the other hand, if I'm really suffering, then maybe I can find refuge in death. But for these entities, there is no refuge. That's the point. I'll be there as digital me forever. And I can, because we determined that it's autonomous from me, I cannot do anything. Thank you for the comment. Yeah, so maybe, I'm in no possession of, it's not this digital me, Jasna, which is existing out there. It's not the scratch of mine. It's not me. It's not mirror of me, like in Plato. It's not in Heidegger, like some being there, like, and then there is a being up there. No, it's autonomous. It's not me. It's not my doppelganger. It's not like in Andersen's The Shadow. You remember the story? Or maybe it is partly, because the shadow eventually is the main hero. It's Danish story. It's really potent and really important for the, and they were visionaries because they kind of foresaw what is happening. So imagine you cannot die. It is out there. It can be hurting, but forever, but it cannot die. So we, what was our primal goal was not to determine just this digital me which exists, but what are their ethical rights and duties, right? Also rights, like I have a right as an digital me entity. Especially because if I cannot die, it means that if I'm there forever, that I can maybe suffer unbearable, not me, my physical me will die, but that digital me we've discovered will also grow some kind of in more and more sapience and salience, and even, oh yeah, thank you. And so we produced a model, and this is the model. So we discovered that digital me 0 will be my raw data, meaning my name, my photograph online, my text, my blog. And this is the level 0. And digital me infinity would be when, and then we discovered between the two are digital me 1, 2, 3, with different levels of consciousness and awareness of themselves, like Google AlphaGo. Just as AlphaGo learned to play chess, we've realized that maybe these digital me's will learn to the moral norms, and we divided them into 3 parts. I'll send the paper. It will be meta-ethics, normative, and applied ethics. Within all 3 domains, we worked with all of them. Our question is whether this digital me will have the ethics which is common, which is human-alike, or because, and this is the last part because I know I'm running out of time. We humans, one of the most common strive of us humans is to try to avoid our fate, sort of. I try to avoid the place I live in, the destiny I was given to, my identity markers, like I want to have another life. This is the most common drive of humans. Partly because humans are mortal, and that's why we assist, we respect the rules, we try to, that's why ethics exist. Our question was, what will happen with digital agents once they realize they are immortal? Will they invent something like a second death or a concept of that just so that they will follow the ethical rules and not to abuse time and to respect rules and to assist and to do no harm? Our question is, what kind of rules will these digital agents, what kind of rules will have to follow, and how we have to train them to learn them, just like training them to play Go and chess and Atari video games, in order to preserve themselves, other digital means, and let's say generally the concept of life. Simon, thank you. And I think I didn't abuse the time.
Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. I'm still mind-boggled with all the possible implications of what you're saying. We have only 1 minute until the end of the session, and we have one comment or a question from Mikala in the chat. I think we could take that now before we end. She writes here, there's a lot of me that is not available online, so I would strongly suggest not to be too scared, in the sense that AI, as far as I know, is normally not multifunctional. There must be many partially coexisting versions of digital me's out there on Facebook, Orblog, Twitter, Google, so on, so on, so on. So many, just like I'm an ontological, many versions of myself. Yes. Yes, I think that's the comment. So, how do you respond to this? Is there only one digital me, or is there many digital me's? And may I add, to the extent that they might be autonomous and do they generate like new versions of themselves, or continue a development that removes them from digital me, so they start from digital me and then become something different from me? Or
thank you so much. Thank you to Mikala's comment. I agree absolutely that there are scratches of Jasna's mom, Jasna's scientist, Jasna's daughter, parent, whatever, friend, lover. But the point is, yeah, there are, we've determined that based on the mathematics that there are many models of digital me's, and the problem is that we've taken them from the position of stochastic and deterministic model, and in both models they are self-evolving. This is the biggest problem, that they won't stop. They will be growing. How to explain them? Just one sentence. There are many examples, but not to abuse the time. You remember 2016 American elections, Trump versus Hillary? And when people say, yeah, I voted, the thing is the digital me's, you remember Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? They needed just 3,000 digital points on me. My name, 1 point, my picture, another point, my 70 pictures, 70 points, like minimal data to tailor the news that you're receiving. So what happened in 2016 was not that the physical Jasna or Simon or Torben or Mikala voted. I mean, if we were American, and all these millions of Americans, their digital me's voted basically because they have been fed with information based on their previous opinion. And the thing is that it's not the citizens that decided the elections, but Twitter was for Trump and Google was for Hillary. It was the battle between two huge algorithms or two huge corporations. And for that particular moment in history, digital means were used as, Simon, this is your question. Yeah, they will be manufactured, used, misused, copied, probably even, it will be even worse. But just one singular moment in history, in political history of the world, proved that for that moment, they actually decided, and it was not real physical me that decided. It was this digital means which will be just growing in the number of I think that I am beaten by another entity. Thank you so much, and I will send you the paper.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I think maybe we will leave the room on for a little bit longer if anyone wants to discuss these two interesting papers or comment any further.
Thank you. Thank you, Mikaela. Thank you.
Yes, we will. I think if I remember correctly, then the last keynote of today will start presentation at 5:45. So we have at least a couple of minutes more if anyone has any comments or discussions.
Thank you so much. And me too. I think that we've come to the point where maybe there is no coming back. Okay, for next presentation. Thank you so much also. Me too. I think that we've passed the threshold 5-6 years ago, and the time is not, and also these digital means do not have the concept of human time. This is also what we've discovered. But I'll send the paper to Simon on his email, and also Torben, to you and to everybody in the group, because we published it last December. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything.
I think maybe with those words we will conclude this session and thank the both speakers, Torben and you, Jasna. Thank you very much. And very soon the next keynote speaker will be ready for his presentation. Thank you.